Hello! In my previous video on ASE, I explained how we can use this software to run molecular dynamics simulations. In and of itself, running MD simulations is pretty useless. If an MD simulation is going to be useful, we need to analyze the trajectory that is generated. Consequently, in this video, I'm going to explain how we can extract the trajectory that ASE generates. Before we get on to extracting and analyzing trajectories, however, let's first briefly recap the process of setting up and running an MD simulation with ASE. Code for running MD with ASE is shown here. As I explained in my last video, the first line here generates initial positions for the atoms. We then generate initial velocities for the atoms here and tell ASE what function should be used to calculate the positions and forces here. Once these initial setup stages are completed, we can run molecular dynamics by using the two commands shown here. Furthermore, we are running molecular dynamics at constant temperature when we use these commands. Having recapped how to run molecular dynamics using ASE, we are now in a position to think about how we can analyze the trajectory that ASE generates. When it comes to doing this analysis, there are two ways we can proceed. The first of these involves doing our analysis on the fly as the MD calculation is running. Code for doing this sort of analysis is shown here. You can see that we write a Python function to do the analysis here. This function can do anything we would like it to do. In other words, we have all the power of Python at our disposal when choosing what analysis to do on the trajectory that ASE is generating. In this case, however, the function is pretty simple. The function is basically just appending the instantaneous potential energy of the system to a list called stats when it's inside the function. Outside the function, that list is called energies. To get ASE to call this function, we need to attach it to the dynamics. This is what this line of code does. It tells ASE that it must call the function printEnergy on every 10th MD step. I control how frequently the function is called by setting the variable interval when calling this din.attach function. If you look at the printEnergy function again, you will notice that it takes the atoms object as input. As I explained in the last video, this object or variable contains all the information about the atoms. I can thus pull the positions, velocities, energies, or forces out of it by calling various methods that belong to the ASE atoms class. It is this flexibility that allows me to do whatever analysis I so choose on the instantaneous microstates that are being visited during the MD trajectory. In addition to passing atoms to the printEnergy function, I can also pass other global variables. For example, in this code, I pass the Python list called energies to this function. At the end of the simulation, this list will contain the energies of the visited microstates because every time printEnergies is called, the instantaneous energy is appended to this list. Notice that you can use a similar idea to calculate averages, histograms, or any other variables. You can thus do any form of trajectory analysis you need by making use of the din.attach method. There is an alternative to doing the analysis on the fly, however. Instead of attaching your function to the dynamics, you can save the trajectory and analyze it later. Code for saving the trajectory is shown here. The first new line of code here is this one, which basically contains creates an ASE trajectory object. This command will create a file on your computer called mytraj.traj that will contain your trajectory information. A human being cannot read this file, as is it written in a way that only a computer can understand. You can extract information from it, however, as we will see in later videos. Once you've created the trajectory, you then attach the right method of the trajectory object to the dynamics using the din attach command that we learned earlier. Lastly, you close the trajectory object at the end of the simulation, as shown here. Now, you may ask at this stage, what is the better option? Is it better to analyze the trajectory on the fly, or is it better to save the trajectory and analyze it later? The answer to this question depends on what you are doing. The major disadvantage associated with analyzing the trajectory on the fly is that you have to decide on all the analyses you want to perform before running the calculation. If you have the saved trajectory, you can analyze it in many different ways once the MD simulation, which is usually the computationally expensive part of the exercise, is completed. Having said that, however, the trajectories that are generated by modern MD simulations are large. Storing these large amounts of data has a monetary cost as well, so in some cases you simply have to analyze the data on the fly. A PhD student doing research in molecular dynamics should thus ideally be able to analyze their trajectories using both methods. In other words, they should be able to add methods to the MD codes they are running so that the analysis is done on the fly, and they should be able to do their analysis in post-processing once the trajectory data is generated. They are then in a position to make a decision as to the method that is appropriate in the particular context of the research they are doing. That is why I've explained both of these methods here. I hope you have found this video useful. Thank you for your attention, and good luck with the exercises.